Have you ever sat in a room full of people and felt like you couldn't say what you were really feeling? You smile, your voice sounds steady, you nod along at the right moments, but behind your eyes, there's a quiet ache, a weight that never quite leaves. You tell yourself you're just tired, just busy, just processing. But the truth is simpler and heavier. You're holding everything inside because it feels safer that way. There's a moment you know well, the moment where your phone rests in your hand, screen glowing in the dark. You type out a message that says, "I'm not okay." You stare at it, feel your chest tighten, feel the vulnerability rise like a tide. And then, slowly, your thumb hits delete, letter by letter, until your truth disappears. And you send something harmless instead, something that doesn't reveal a thing. You have cried silently before in the shower, where the water hides the sound of your breath breaking, or lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to swallow the heaviness because you don't want anyone to worry, because you don't want to be seen as dramatic, weak, or needy. The tears don't fall because you want pity. They fall because there is nowhere else for your emotions to go. People assume you're strong. They call you the calm one, the one who doesn't get bothered, the one who's always composed. But they don't see the tension in your jaw. They don't hear the beginnings of sentences you never speak. They don't know how many times you've wanted to say, "Stay, hear me, don't leave." This is not shyness. This is not indifference. It is learned emotional restraint, a habit shaped over years, formed in the quiet corners of your past. At some point, you discovered that expressing your feelings didn't bring comfort. It brought judgment, or punishment, or silence. So you adapted. You learned how to fold your feelings so tight that even you sometimes forget they're there. But they are there. Every unspoken sentence, every suppressed tear, every moment you chose silence instead of truth. They collect inside you, waiting. And here is the truth many never hear. Not sharing your feelings is not natural. It is taught. And what is taught can be unlearned. To understand why you stay silent now, we have to go back to the first time you learned that speaking your heart was not safe, to the moment where silence became survival. Have you ever wondered when the silence first began? It rarely starts in adulthood. It begins when you are small, when your world is shaped less by choice and more by survival. Picture a child standing in a living room, tears in their eyes, voice trembling as they try to explain what hurts. And then, they hear it the words that will echo through the rest of their life. "Stop crying, it's not a big deal." In that moment, something inside them learns. Emotions are not welcome here. Sometimes, the home wasn't cold, but unpredictable. A place where feelings sparked conflict, where expressing sadness made someone else angry, where honesty was treated as disrespect. You learned very early that speaking your truth could turn a room into a storm, so you stopped speaking. Not because you didn't feel, but because you felt too much. Or maybe love in your home had conditions. You were praised when you were calm, quiet, helpful, the good child, the one who didn't cause trouble. You learned to read the emotional weather of the house before you said a word. You learned to keep your face soft, your tone light, your needs invisible. It wasn't maturity, it was adaptation. Psychologists call this emotional conditioning, when the child shapes their behavior to protect the relationship they depend on. Attachment is survival. A child doesn't stop needing love. They simply sacrifice parts of themselves to keep it. And so, without knowing it, you built a room inside yourself. A quiet place where all the words you couldn't say were stored. The quiet room. It was small at first, a corner, a hidden pocket of silence. But as the years passed, it grew. Every time you swallowed your sadness, every time you hid your anger, every time you pretended you were fine, the walls expanded. In that room, Your emotions waited, the longing to be held, the fear of being forgotten, the loneliness you couldn't explain. They didn't disappear, they simply had no place to go. You learned to survive by being agreeable, by avoiding conflict, by becoming useful. You learned that emotional expression risked love, attention, safety, so you buried your needs beneath politeness and composure, telling yourself that silence was strength. But here is the quiet truth. A child who learns to stay silent does not grow out of silence. They grow into it. What begins as protection becomes identity. There comes a point where the child who learned to stay quiet grows up, and silence no longer looks like silence. It looks like control. It looks like calm. It looks like strength. People see you now and think you are unbothered, steady, emotionally mature. They don't hear the storm inside because your face has learned how to stay still. You've worn the mask for so long that it has molded perfectly to your skin. The mask of the unbothered. You know the script by heart. Someone asks, "Are you okay?" And you answer before your mind even has time to breathe. "Yeah, I'm fine." The words fall out as naturally as exhaling. You don't even consider telling the truth, because the truth feels too heavy to place in someone else's hands. You tell yourself it's not the right time. You tell yourself they won't understand. You tell yourself you don't want to be a burden. And so the words stay in your chest, where they sit like a stone in water, sinking, silent, unseen. You have become an excellent listener. People come to you with their heartbreaks, their fears, their breakdowns at 2 a.m. They thank you for being dependable, for being calm, for being the strong one. They don't know that you give comfort so effortlessly because you have needed it just as desperately. They don't know that while you soothe the pain of others, you are quietly unraveling in places no one ever sees. You care deeply, maybe too deeply, but the deeper the feeling, the stronger the lock on the door you keep it behind. Vulnerability feels like standing barefoot on shards of glass. One misstep and everything might bleed. So you choose silence, safety, predictability. And yet, there is a loneliness in being known only for what you give, not who you are. There are nights when it hits you, when you're lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling the weight of everything you didn't say. You want someone to reach into that quiet room inside you and say, "I see you, not the mask, you." But intimacy requires being seen, and being seen requires opening the door, and the door has been locked for so many years that the handle feels foreign in your hand. So you move through life, half present, half hidden, longing to be understood while fearing the very act that could make it possible. You carry yourself with grace, composure, strength, but it is strength born from silence, not peace. But silence has a psychological cost. Have you ever wondered why it feels so hard to speak your feelings, even when you want to? Why the words dissolve somewhere between your chest and your throat? Psychology has a name for this pattern: avoidant attachment. It forms when a child learns that reaching out doesn't bring comfort, that expressing emotion does not create closeness, but distance, discomfort, or rejection. So the child adapts. They learn to soothe themselves. They learn to carry storms alone, and that child grows into you. In attachment theory, this is not seen as failure. It is strategy, a survival response. You didn't close your heart because you lacked emotion. You closed it because at some early point in your life, emotion was not safe to share. Neuroscience shows that suppressed emotions don't vanish. They don't evaporate into nothingness. They move inward, into muscles that never fully relax, into a tiredness that sleep cannot fix, into a tightness in your chest you can never properly name. The body keeps the score not as metaphor, but as memory. You feel it in your jaw, your back, the way you sigh without knowing why. There is a term psychologists use, alexithymia. It sounds complex, but its meaning is simple: the inability to identify or describe what you feel. Not because there is nothing inside you, but because no one ever helped you learn the language of your own heart. Emotional neglect doesn't always look like cruelty. Sometimes it simply looks like absence, the absence of attunement, of someone looking at you and saying, "What you feel matters, tell me." When the nervous system senses threat, emotional or physical, it activates the freeze response. Not running, not fighting, just stillness, silence, internal locking. This response was once a shield. It kept you from overwhelm. It protected you when there was no one to help hold your feelings. But the nervous system cannot tell the difference between then and now. So, even as an adult, in a safe room, with someone who genuinely cares, your body still whispers, "Don't speak, don't risk it, stay quiet." The paradox is painful. The more you suppress, the more distant your own feelings become. And the more distant your feelings become, the harder it is to express them. What once protected you now isolates you. What once shielded you now imprisons you. And what begins as protection eventually becomes suffocation. There comes a moment in your life when you realize that silence has not protected you, it has only isolated you. You can be surrounded by people, laughing in a room, full of familiar voices, and still feel as though you are locked behind an invisible wall. The conversations happen around you, not with you. You are there, but not fully present. You are seen, but not truly known. And this loneliness, the kind that exists even in company, is perhaps the heaviest kind. You try to love, you try to connect, but every time someone gets too close, something inside you pulls away, not because you don't care, but because you care so deeply that you fear the weight of it. You don't know how to let someone hold the parts of you that you have never held yourself. So you give them your patience, your stability, your presence, but not your heart. You keep that somewhere else, somewhere locked. There is a room inside you that no one enters. A quiet chamber behind your ribs, sealed long ago. When pain rises, when memories echo, when longing grows too loud, you go there. You sit in that silent place and let the world fade away. It was once refuge. Now, it is exile. It feels as though your emotions speak through glass pressed against the surface, visible only as shapes and shadows. You can see what you feel, but you can't quite reach it. And when someone asks what's wrong, your voice sounds distant, muffled, unreal, like someone speaking from another room. You say, "I don't know." But you do know, you just can't name it. Over time, the storm becomes internal. The overthinking, the rehearsed conversations, the quiet spirals that take place in your mind at night. You replay moments where you could have spoken, could have asked for help, could have said you were hurting but didn't, and each time, regret settles deeper beneath your skin. People think you are strong because they never see you break. They don't realize that your composure is not strength, it is silence. And silence, when repeated long enough, becomes identity. You stop remembering what it was like to cry openly, to speak freely, to ask for comfort without shame. You begin to believe that your suffering is meant to be endured alone, but here is the tragedy. The world rewards this. The world praises the quiet warrior, the self-contained soul, the person who never needs anything, but society praises them for this. Have you noticed how the world applauds those who feel nothing? How society praises the ones who stay calm, unshaken, untouched by emotional gravity? From a young age, you are told not to cry, not to take things personally, not to make it a big deal. You learn that emotional expression is seen as childish, messy, dramatic. So, you begin to swallow your feelings whole, believing that maturity means silence. The world teaches you that strength is the absence of visible pain. In school, you learn to keep your voice steady, even when your heart is breaking. In friendships, you become the listener, the supporter, the one who never needs help. In relationships, you downplay your needs so you don't seem needy. You become the person who says, "It's fine," even when it isn't. You become the one who lets go first, forgives first, forgets first, not because you don't feel, but because you feel too deeply, and the world has convinced you that depth is a burden. Workplaces, families, and romantic culture all reward composure. The quiet, emotionally self-contained person is seen as more attractive, more professional, more stable. If you don't cry, you're resilient. If you don't complain, you're strong. If you don't ask for reassurance, you're independent. You are told this is maturity. But what it truly is emotional starvation dressed as grace. People call you chill. They admire how nothing seems to get to you. They think you are low maintenance, easy to love, easy to keep near because you never ask for more. They believe your silence is peace. But silence is not peace. Silence is distance. Silence is the scar tissue that forms over wounds that were never allowed to bleed. And the trap is subtle, almost invisible. You are celebrated for the very wound that hurts you. The world encourages your quiet suffering because it is more convenient for others when you carry your pain alone. They praise the version of you that does not need, does not ask, does not break. They love the mask, not the person beneath it. Yet every feeling you bury remains inside you. Every unspoken fear, every swallowed tear, every time you said, "I'm okay." When your soul was collapsing, these emotions do not disappear. They wait. They gather. They press against the walls of your quiet room, asking to be heard. And no matter how strong your mask is, no matter how elegant your silence appears, there is a truth that cannot be escaped. Every unspoken feeling demands to be felt. There is a quiet kind of erosion that happens when you carry your emotions alone. It doesn't happen all at once. It happens slowly, subtly, like a shoreline being worn away by waves you cannot see. One day, you look inside yourself and realize you can't feel things the way you used to. Not fully, not deeply, not clearly. Numbness doesn't come as emptiness. It comes as a blur, a soft fog over everything that once felt sharp. You want to love, but something in you holds back. You want to trust, but your body flinches before your mind understands why. The distance you created to protect yourself has become a habit, and habits become walls. You can be lying in bed next to someone who loves you and still feel as though there are oceans between you. You tell yourself it's safer this way, that needing less means hurting less. But the truth is harder. You're not hurting less, you're just hurting alone. There are moments when you crave closeness so intensely it aches beneath your ribs. You imagine leaning into someone, letting them see you, the real you, the tired you, the scared you, the soft you. But the moment you feel that vulnerability rising, your guard returns like a reflex. You pull away, you change the subject, you swallow the words whole. It is not that you don't want to be understood. It is that somewhere deep inside, you have convinced yourself that you are unworthy of being understood, that your feelings would inconvenience others, that your needs are too much. And so, you silence yourself before anyone else has the chance to silence you. Over time, this creates a loneliness that is difficult to name. A loneliness that does not come from being without people, but from being unfelt by the very people who care about you. Your relationships begin to suffer, not because you don't love enough, but because you never learned how to let yourself be loved fully. You are there for others without hesitation, yet you hesitate to let them be there for you. And the tragedy is, no one sees the battle. People see your strength, your composure, your independence. They do not see the nights you sit in silence, holding your own heart because you don't know how to place it in someone else's hands. But here is the truth that matters more than the silence you've lived inside. Silence is not permanent. Silence was learned, and silence can be unlearned. Healing does not begin with shouting your truth into the world. It begins in a much quieter place inside you. Before you can speak to others, you must learn to speak to yourself again. You have spent years pushing your emotions into that locked room inside your chest. So the first step is simply acknowledging what waits behind the door. Not judging it, not fixing it, just noticing. I am tired. I am overwhelmed. I am lonely. These are not weaknesses. They are signals, like a light flickering in the hallway of a home you are finally returning to. You do not need to open the entire door at once. Healing happens in microdoses, one small truth at a time. You don't need to tell someone your entire life story. Start with something simple. I had a hard day. I could use some company. Vulnerability is not a grand gesture. It is the smallest act of honesty spoken when silence has been your default. And not everyone deserves to hear your heart. Choose people who have shown they can hold it gently. Relationships that feel steady, patient, breathable. Emotional safety is not found in people who demand your truth, but in those who create space for it. The ones who listen without trying to fix you. The ones who let your pauses be long, who let your silence breathe without interpreting it as distance. Journaling can help unravel the language you have forgotten. Writing allows you to speak without being witnessed, without fear of judgment. It teaches your nervous system that expression is not danger. Studies show that naming your emotions reduces their intensity, not because the feeling disappears, but because it is finally allowed to exist in daylight. When you put feelings into words, you begin to reclaim the parts of yourself you left behind. Think of the door inside you, the door to your quiet room. You do not need to break it open. Breaking invites overwhelm. You need to unlock it gently, a fraction at a time, letting light slip in through the smallest cracks. You are not trying to become someone new. You are returning to who you were before silence became your shelter. This is not performance. You are not learning how to show emotion. You are learning how to feel again. The goal is not to open yourself to everyone, only to yourself and to those who have earned the right to know you. And as the door slowly opens, something shifts not outwardly, but inwardly, a soft remembering of your own humanity. Now, the final question becomes, what does it mean to live as someone who is no longer hidden? Have you ever noticed how the heart speaks, even when the mouth remains silent? The tremor in your hands, the heaviness behind your eyes, the way your chest tightens when someone asks if you're all right. Your feelings have never stopped trying to find you. They have always been there, waiting for you to turn toward them instead of away. Your emotions were never the enemy. They were messages, directions, signals. They were trying to tell you what mattered, what hurt, what needed care. But somewhere along the way, the world convinced you that your feelings were too loud, too messy, too inconvenient to be seen. And so you tucked them away, thinking this would make life easier. But your feelings are not storms to be hidden, they are the weather of the soul. They shape landscapes inside you. They form rivers and valleys, dawns and eclipses. They give color to your joy, meaning to your memories, depth to your connections. To silence them is to flatten the world you live in. To numb them is to step out of your own life and watch it from a distance. You have walked through so much alone. You've held pain with quiet strength. You've swallowed words that were too heavy to speak. And yet, even now, you are still capable of opening. You are still capable of being known. It does not matter how many years you have spent behind the mask. The heart does not forget how to feel. It only waits for permission. To be known is to be alive. Not known by everyone, just one person. One moment of truth. One breath where you say, "This is how I feel," and the world does not end. Healing does not require dramatic confession. It begins in the smallest act of honesty with yourself, and slowly with others. You are not weak for wanting to be understood. You are human. And the longing you carry, the ache you've held beneath your ribs, is not a flaw. It is proof that your heart is still beating, still wanting connection, still searching for a place to belong. Look at yourself gently now, not as the silent child, not as the guarded adult, but as someone standing at a doorway, hand on the handle, breathing softly, considering stepping forward into a breathing life where your voice is allowed to exist. You were not born silent. you were taught to be, and you can learn to speak again.